Dr. Elena Chen's presentation on xenolinguistic theory to a half-empty conference hall in Chicago came to an abrupt halt as darkness swept across the room. The confused murmurs of academics turned to gasps as the massive windows revealed the source, a crystalline vessel materializing above the skyline, its translucent hull refracting sunlight into prismatic patterns that might have been beautiful if not for their ominous implications. "My God," whispered Professor Takahashi beside her. "It's happening." Elena's phone vibrated with emergency alerts as similar reports flooded in from Beijing, Moscow, London, and 24 other major cities worldwide. The alien ship above Chicago, at least a mile in diameter, hovered with impossible silence, its angular edges catching the morning light like a suspended diamond. The lecture hall erupted into chaos. Elena stood frozen at the podium, her years of theoretical work on potential alien communication suddenly, terrifyingly relevant. Her fingers tightened around her presentation clicker as a purple beam lanced from the vessel's underside, striking something in the distance. The conference center trembled from a shockwave. "Great Lakes Naval Base," someone shouted, pointing toward the distant plume of smoke rising beyond the city limits. Elena's training kicked in. She grabbed her laptop and notes, pushing through panicking colleagues toward the exit. If these were truly extraterrestrial visitors, someone with her expertise would be needed. The streets outside had descended into gridlock as thousands fled the downtown area. Above the cacophony of car horns and sirens, every screen in the city, smartphones, billboards, transit displays, flickered to life simultaneously. The face that appeared made Elena's breath catch. Humanoid but unmistakably alien, with iridescent scale-like skin and multifaceted eyes that reflected light like insect eyes. When it spoke, its mouth moved in imperfect synchronization with the words, "People of Earth, I am Commander Vextor of the Missouri Expansion Fleet. Your world has been designated for integration into our empire. Your primitive defenses have been neutralized as a demonstration of our technological superiority. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. Surrender yourselves to the collection centers we will establish, and the transition will be orderly. Those who resist will be processed without consideration for their comfort or survival." Elena recorded the message on her phone, her analytical mind already working through the implications. Perfect English, which suggested they'd been monitoring Earth's communications. The threat was clear, but something about the phrasing nagged at her academic instincts. A second beam struck downtown, vaporizing the Willis Tower in a silent flash that left nothing but floating debris where the skyscraper had stood moments before. The shockwave knocked Elena to the ground, her ears ringing as ash and pulverized concrete rained down. Hours later, huddled in the basement of a university building with dozens of other survivors, Elena analyzed the alien transmission on her laptop. While politicians and military leaders worldwide attempted negotiation or mounted futile counterattacks, she isolated something peculiar in the background frequencies of the broadcast, a secondary communication channel embedded within the transmission. Using algorithms designed for her theoretical work, she filtered out the main message and found it, a stream of data being exchanged between Missouri ships. Her software couldn't translate the alien language, but pattern recognition revealed something startling. Celebratory communications. They were congratulating each other on a successful conquest before the invasion had even properly begun. "They expect us to surrender immediately," she murmured to herself. "They've done this before, and no one has ever fought back after the initial demonstration." The basement shook as another attack struck nearby. Military response had been met with overwhelming force everywhere on the planet. But Elena now suspected something crucial. The Missouri weren't prepared for prolonged conflict. Their strategy assumed immediate capitulation. A university security guard burst through the door. Something crashed in the lake. One of their ships went down. Elena grabbed her equipment. If a Missouri craft had crashed, it might be their only opportunity to gather intelligence that could help humanity survive. Against the terrified protests of her colleagues, she followed the guard upstairs and out toward Lake Michigan, where a small alien vessel had carved a steaming trench into the shoreline. She approached the twisted wreckage cautiously, picking her way across wet sand as sirens wailed in the distance. Through a ruptured section of hull, she spotted movement. A Merzeri pilot, pinned and clearly dying, purple liquid pooling beneath its slender form. The alien's multifaceted eyes locked onto hers, mandibles clicking in what she interpreted as pain or fear. Around its head was a neural interface similar to experimental devices Elena had studied. With trembling hands, she removed her university lanyard and wrapped it around her palm for insulation, then reached for the device. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but we need to understand." Her fingers touched the interface, and her world exploded into alien memories. 17 worlds conquered, billions subjugated, all without significant resistance. The neural link burned into her consciousness as the dying Merzeri's final thought echoed with genuine confusion. These humans should have surrendered already. Why aren't they surrendering? Colonel Marcus Rivera pressed his back against the crumbling wall. The once grand Bogota Cathedral, now a hollowed shell 3 months into the Merzeri occupation. Moonlight filtered through the shattered stained glass, casting alien patterns across his 5-person team. They wore mismatched body armor scavenged from police stations and military outposts, their faces smeared with ash to break up their silhouettes. Drone feed shows 14 hostages in the processing center, whispered Sergeant Diaz, her tablet displaying grainy thermal images of the converted hospital 2 blocks away. Heavy guard rotation every 20 minutes. Rivera checked his watch, a battered analog timepiece immune to the electromagnetic interference that rendered most digital devices useless near Merzeri technology. 3 minutes until the next rotation. We move then. The processing centers had appeared in every major city within days of the invasion. Initially, the aliens claimed they were registration facilities for the orderly transition to Merzeri governance. But rumors spread of people entering and never returning or emerging fundamentally changed, vacant-eyed and compliant. Rivera's team slipped through rubble-choked streets, communicating with hand signals perfected over months of guerrilla operations. The processing center loomed ahead, its sterile white exterior incongruous against the devastated cityscape. 2 Merzeri guards stood at the entrance, their armored exoskeletons gleaming under floodlights. "Remember," Rivera whispered, "these aren't the warrior caste. Maintenance drones, limited combat programming." On his signal, Diaz fired an improvised EMP device that sparked across the aliens' neural implants. The Merzeri guards convulsed, their synchronized movements deteriorating into uncoordinated spasms, like puppets with severed strings. Rivera's team neutralized them before they could recover. Inside, the clinical white corridors reeked of antiseptic and something else, a metallic odor that Rivera had come to associate with Merzeri technology. They followed the building's blueprint from memory, encountering surprisingly little resistance. Too easy, Rivera thought, unease prickling at his spine. The central processing chamber answered his concerns. Glass tubes filled with bluish fluid lined the walls, each containing a human body connected to neural interfaces similar to those worn by Merzeri soldiers. Medical drones moved between the tubes, monitoring readouts and adjusting equipment with mechanical precision. "Dios mío," Diaz breathed. "They're not taking prisoners. They're harvesting compatible humans for neural interfaces," Rivera realized, horror congealing in his gut. The resistance had assumed the processing centers were for sorting humans into labor categories. The reality was far worse. They were being converted into living components for Merzeri technology. A soft metallic tap from above made Rivera look up. In the ceiling vent, dark eyes peered down at them. He raised his weapon instinctively. "Don't shoot," came a whispered voice with a Nigerian accent. "I've been mapping their patrol routes for 2 weeks." The vent cover slid aside, and a woman dropped silently to the floor. Emaciated but alert, she wore a lab coat modified with pockets full of crude electronic devices. "Aisha Okafor," she introduced herself, extending a hand that Rivera noticed was covered in burn scars and circuitry ink. "Electromagnetic engineer. I've rigged disruption devices throughout the facility. They'll trigger when I activate this." She held up a makeshift remote. "Should buy us 20 minutes of chaos." Before Rivera could respond, alarms blared. On the security feed, a squad of warrior-cased Merzeri entered the building's far side. "I count 12 hostages still alive," Rivera said, assessing the tubes. "More than we planned for." Aisha's eyes gleamed with fierce determination. 23 actually. The rest are in the secondary lab, and I'm not leaving anyone behind." She pressed her remote before Rivera could object. Throughout the facility, dozens of small devices activated simultaneously, bombarding the Merzeri neural network with contradictory signals. The effect was immediate. The medical drones collided with each other. The warrior-cased soldiers at the entrance began firing at shadows, and the central control systems spiraled into cascading failures. "How did you?" Rivera began. "Their neural implants operate on predictable frequencies," Aisha explained as she began disconnecting the first human from the tubes. "Disrupt those frequencies, and they can't coordinate. They're fundamentally dependent on their hive mind. Individualism is their weakness." Rivera's team worked quickly, freeing twice as many survivors as they'd hoped. As they retreated through the chaos of confused Merzeri, Rivera realized they'd stumbled upon something more valuable than just rescued captives. They'd found a vulnerability in the seemingly invincible enemy, and in Aisha Okafor, they'd found someone who knew how to exploit it. The Arctic Research Station, Atlantis, lived up to its name. A submerged complex of interconnected modules beneath 3 meters of ice, powered by geothermal vents and completely undetectable to Merzeri scanners. Dr. Elena Chen had spent 4 months here, analyzing the neural imprint she'd received from the dying alien pilot in Chicago. Her quarters resembled a madwoman's den, walls covered with diagrams of Merzeri neural pathways, printouts of alien communication patterns, and sketches of 17 conquered worlds glimpsed in the pilot's memories. She hadn't slept properly in days, the alien consciousness fragments still occasionally surfacing in her dreams. "Surfacing at 600, announced the station's intercom. "Icebreaker returns with new supplies and personnel." Atlantis's monthly connection to the outside world was both essential and dangerous. Elena packed her research notes into a waterproof case. If the station were compromised, these findings would need to survive. In the airlock chamber, she joined Major Volkov, the station's security chief. "Any word on the Tokyo extraction team?" she asked. Volkov checked his heavily encrypted tablet. No contact since they reported finding the anomaly. The anomaly was a Japanese teenager who had somehow developed the ability to intercept Merzeri communications. If the reports were accurate, he could be crucial to Elena's research. The station's proximity alarms suddenly blared, sending personnel scrambling to battle stations. Multiple contacts approaching from the southeast, reported the sensor operator, voice tight with tension. "Merzeri," Volkov demanded. "Negative. Human signatures, 6 of them. One matches the thermal pattern of extreme hypothermia." Elena pushed past Volkov to the monitor. "It's the Tokyo team." The extraction team had returned, half-frozen but alive, with 4 additional survivors, a Japanese family. At their center was a thin 16-year-old boy, Haruki Tanaka, who stared at Elena with unnerving intensity from the moment they met. "You're the one who touched the pilot's mind," he said in halting English. "I can feel the echo in you." Before Elena could respond, the station shuddered violently. Ice chunks crashed down from the ceiling as alarms wailed. "Merzeri cruiser," shouted the communications officer. "It's breaking through the ice directly above us." "Combat protocols," ordered Volkov, but Elena grabbed his arm. "No. If they detect weapons fire, they'll bring reinforcements. We need to capture survivors, not kill them." "Are you insane? We're outgunned." "Trust me," Elena insisted. "This isn't a search party, it's a crash. The monitor confirmed her assessment. The Merzeri vessel wasn't deploying in an attack pattern, but tumbling erratically, its propulsion systems failing as it plunged toward the ice sheet above the station. The impact rattled Atlantis to its foundations. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut as seawater and chunks of ice poured through fractures in the ceiling. For 20 minutes, organized chaos reigned as damage control teams stabilized the compromised sections. Survivors detected in the wreckage, reported a scout team. One Merzeri, high-cased markings, critically injured. Elena found Haruki already waiting at the airlock, his expression distant, as if listening to something no one else could hear. "It's Commander Talvex," the boy said quietly. "Vextor's nephew. He's dying." "How could you possibly know that?" Volkov demanded. Haruki touched his temple. "I hear them. Always. The voices. Clearer now, with her nearby." He nodded toward Elena. In the medical bay, the injured Merzeri commander lay restrained, purple blood seeping through hasty bandages. His multifaceted eyes flickered weakly, mandibles clicking in what Elena recognized as a pain response. "We could interrogate him," Volkov suggested. "Traditional methods." "No," said Elena firmly. "I have a better idea." She turned to Haruki. "You can hear their communications. I've experienced their memories. Together, we might be able to establish a three-way neural link." "That's impossible," protested the chief medical officer. "Even if we had the technology." "We do." Elena opened her case, revealing a modified Merzeri neural interface salvaged from the Chicago crash. "I've been adapting this for human use." Haruki stepped forward, eyes fixed on the dying alien. "I'll do it. It could kill you both," Volkov warned. "If it works," Elena countered, "we'll learn more in 5 minutes than we have in 6 months of fighting." As medical staff prepared for the procedure, Haruki whispered to Elena, "There's something else you should know. Some of them, the lower castes. They're curious about us, about our music, our art. They've never known individual thought before. Earth is changing them too." The modified nuclear submarine Vengeance glided silently beneath the crushing pressure of the Philippine Sea. Once the pride of China's naval fleet, it now bore the scars of hasty repairs and desperate modifications. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Wei Lin studied the sonar display with narrowed eyes. Above them, the unmistakable signatures of 17 Merzeri vessels formed a blockade around Australia. 30 kilometers to the Mariana Trench, reported her navigation officer. Last transmission from Resistance confirmed the Darwin facility is operational. We nodded, her expression betraying nothing of the anxiety churning in her stomach. The Vengeance carried humanity's most valuable cargo, Aisha Okafor's electromagnetic disruptors, and a data core containing Haruki Tanaka's mapped network of alien communication blind spots. If they didn't break through the blockade, Operation Undertow would die before it began. Merzeri patrol changing course, warned the sonar operator suddenly. "They've adjusted heading, directly toward our position." "Impossible," Wei said. "We're running silent at 400 meters." The tactical officer's face paled. "They're dropping depth charges." The first explosion rocked the submarine, sending crew members sprawling. Alarms blared as compartments sealed automatically. "How did they detect us?" demanded Wei, steadying herself against the command console. "Unknown, Captain. But they're bracketing our position with precision." Another depth charge detonated closer, the pressure wave threatening to buckle the hull. Wei made a swift calculation. They couldn't outrun the Merzeri vessels, couldn't surface to fight, and couldn't maintain their current course. "Helm, take us down," she ordered. "Down? We're already at crush depth 4. "The Challenger deep," Wei interrupted. "Take us into the trench." The navigation officer stared in disbelief. "Captain, that's 11,000 meters. No submarine has ever." "The Merzeri ships can't follow us that deep," Wei said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. "And this vessel was reinforced with salvaged alien hull material after Shanghai. We'll hold." The Vengeance angled downward, diving toward the deepest point in Earth's oceans. The hull groaned in protest as pressure increased exponentially. In the engine room, engineers worked frantically to redistribute power to the structural integrity fields. Technology reverse-engineered from a downed Merzari scout craft. At 7,000 meters, the depth charges stopped. At 9,000, the submarine's conventional instruments failed completely. At 10,000, hairline fractures appeared in the forward viewport, immediately sealed by emergency systems. "We've lost contact with the surface," reported communications. "Maintain course," Wei ordered, though her white-knuckled grip on the railing betrayed her tension. The darkness outside was absolute, broken only occasionally by bioluminescent deep-sea creatures that scattered from the submarine's path. Then, as they approached 11,000 meters, something unexpected appeared in their searchlights. Geometric structures rising from the seafloor. "Are those buildings?" whispered the navigation officer. We leaned forward in disbelief as the structures resolved into view. A vast complex of reinforced domes and cylindrical habitats built around a series of hydrothermal vents, camouflaged to mimic natural formations. Human-made, but unlike any deep-sea facility in official records. Multiple vessels approaching. Warn sonar. Configuration unknown. Wei tensed, preparing to order emergency maneuvers, when the communication system crackled to life with a message on a frequency that hadn't been used since the invasion began. "Unidentified submarine. This is Mariana Sanctuary. We've been expecting you." Inside the secret underwater city, Wei stood speechless before a vast geothermal power plant that channeled energy from the Earth's core. Thousands of survivors, mostly Chinese and Filipino civilians along with scientists from a dozen nations, had built an entirely self-sufficient habitat beyond the reach of Merzari detection. "We began construction in secret 5 years ago as a deep-sea research station," explained Dr. Zhao, the facilities director. "When the invasion came, we expanded to accommodate refugees and repurposed our fabrication labs." Wei watched as Asia's disruptor prototypes were unloaded from the Vengeance and carried to a manufacturing facility where hundreds of workers were already producing components. "You've been preparing for a counterattack," Wei realized. Dr. Zhao nodded gravely. "Operation Undertow. Simultaneous strikes on all 12 Merzari atmospheric processors. We've been waiting for your arrival to execute." A technician approached with a tablet displaying a global map with blinking lights representing resistance cells around the world. For the first time since the invasion, Wei felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. "How soon can we begin?" she asked. "Communications are primed. Strike teams are in position. We can launch in 18 hours. Wei took a deep breath. "Then let's take back our planet." 18 months into the war, the Merzari flagship Eternal Dominance hung in low Earth orbit like a crystalline dagger poised above the planet. Within its labyrinthine corridors, Colonel Rivera led his strike team through shadows, their movements synchronized with precision, born from months of planning. "Neural disruptor active," whispered Aisha Okafor, the device on her wrist emitting a field that rendered them invisible to the ship's integrated consciousness. "We have 19 minutes before the system adapts." Rivera nodded. Beside him, Dr. Chen and Haruki Tanaka moved in perfect coordination, their neural connections allowing silent communication. Bringing them had been a calculated risk. Both were irreplaceable assets, but without their unique abilities, the mission would be impossible. The unlikely fifth member of their team walked ahead, his Merzari physiology providing access through biometric barriers. Talvex, once heir to the invasion fleet, now humanity's most valuable defector, moved with the tense alertness of one who knew the penalty for his choices. "The hostages are held in Quadrant 7. Talvex communicated through the neural link Chen had established. "My uncle keeps them close to ensure compliance from resistance cells." Haruki suddenly stiffened, his eyes going distant. "Patrol approaching." "Not regular schedule." The team pressed against the wall as a squadron of warrior-cased Merzeri passed within meters, their neural implants temporarily unable to detect the intruders due to Aisha's technology. Their increasing security rotations, Haruki reported after they passed. Something's happening. Rivera exchanged glances with Chen. Their intelligence had warned that Commander Vextor was planning something significant, but details remained elusive. They reached a vast chamber with transparent walls offering a view of Earth below. Dozens of cylindrical pods lined the walls, each containing a human hostage suspended in preservation fluid. Rivera scanned desperately until he found what he sought: the small form of Weilin's daughter, captured during a raid on the underwater city's supply line. Extraction Protocol Alpha, Rivera ordered, and his team moved to predetermined positions. While Aisha began overriding the pod controls, Chen and Haruki prepared their new weapon, a neural disruptor designed to temporarily sever the telepathic network connecting all Merzari forces. Unlike previous versions, this one would affect the entire fleet simultaneously. "Haruki," Chen said softly, "are you ready?" The young man nodded, though fear flickered across his face. "I'll need to lower my mental shields to broadcast the sequence. It will hurt." 6 minutes remaining, Talvex warned. As Aisha worked to release the hostages, a door at the far end of the chamber slid open. Rivera reacted instantly, pushing the others behind the pods as a Merzeri patrol entered. Too many to fight silently. Their mission time clock suddenly compressed. "Get the hostages," Rivera ordered. "I'll create a diversion." Before the others could protest, he slipped away, drawing the patrol's attention with deliberate noise. The Merzeri soldiers followed, their hive-mind coordination making them terrifyingly efficient hunters. Rivera led them through a series of corridors, using Haruki's mapped blind spots to stay just ahead of capture. His diversion worked, perhaps too well. He found himself cornered near the ship's command sector, a dozen warrior-cased Merzari closing in with weapons raised. A door unexpectedly opened behind him, and Rivera lunged through it, finding himself in an opulent chamber decorated with trophies from conquered worlds. At its center stood Commander Vextor himself, his iridescent exoskeleton bearing the marks of his many victories. The infamous Colonel Rivera, the alien commander said, mandibles clicking in what Rivera had learned was amusement. "I expected someone larger." Rivera assessed his options. The neural disruptor would activate in minutes, but he needed to survive that long. "Size is overrated," he replied, drawing his combat knife, pathetically small against the commander's natural armor. "So is technology." Vextor laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Your species' defiance continues to fascinate me. 17 worlds surrendered after our first demonstration of power. Yet you humans persist despite certain defeat. Maybe we know something they didn't," Rivera said, circling slowly. The commander activated his energy staff, violet light illuminating the chamber. "And what might that be?" Rivera smiled grimly. "That you've never fought a real war before." He launched himself at the much larger alien, using speed and unpredictability against Vextor's superior strength. The commander's first swing nearly decapitated him, but Rivera had studied Merzeri combat techniques through Talvex's memories. Their fighting style relied on overwhelming force and technological advantage, not adaptation or improvisation. Blood streaming from a gash across his forehead, Rivera ducked beneath another swing and drove his knife into a joint in the commander's exoskeleton. Purple fluid spurted as Vextor roared in pain and surprise. "Impossible," the alien hissed. "Our battle simulations can't predict what they've never seen," Rivera finished, pressing his momentary advantage. Elsewhere on the ship, Chen and Haruki activated the neural disruptor. The effect rippled through the Merzari hierarchy like a tsunami. For 7 crucial minutes, every alien soldier experienced something they had never known: complete neural independence. Aisha Okafor hadn't slept in 3 days, The underwater manufacturing facility hummed with constant activity, Mariana Sanctuary's vast resources now dedicated to a single purpose: transforming salvaged Merzeri technology into something new, something human. "Power fluctuation in test chamber 4, reported one of her engineers, eyes hollow from exhaustion. Aisha nodded, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as she adjusted parameters. Behind reinforced observation glass, a hybrid fighter craft hung suspended in a massive testing chamber. Unlike pure Merzeri vessels with their crystalline structures, this craft incorporated both alien technology and human design principles. More angular, more aggressive, and most importantly, built for a single pilot rather than a neural collective. "Neural interface calibration at 93%, she muttered. "Not good enough." The second Merzeri fleet would arrive within weeks. Long-range sensors had detected their approach 2 months ago. A massive armada sent to crush Earth's unexpected resistance once and for all. Conventional weapons would be useless against such overwhelming force. "You should rest," said a voice behind her. Talvex entered the laboratory, his tall frame stooping to accommodate the human-sized doorway. The former Merzeri commander had become an invaluable advisor, though many among the resistance still regarded him with suspicion. "Can't rest," Aisha replied, not looking up from her work. "These fighters are our only hope against your people's reinforcements." "They will fail," Talvex stated bluntly. "Even with modified Merzeri technology, you cannot match our fleet's neural coordination. Your pilots cannot process battlefield information quickly enough." Aisha finally turned to face him, anger flashing in her exhausted eyes. "Then what do you suggest?" "Surrender." The alien was silent for a moment, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "There is a possibility. Among my people, it would be considered abomination." He hesitated. "You need to speak with the boy, Haruki." 2 hours later, Lieutenant Commander Wei Lin stood before Aisha in the test chamber, eyeing the hybrid fighter with professional assessment. "You want me to test fly this prototype?" Wei asked, running her hand along the craft's hull. "More than that," Aisha replied. "Talvex has suggested a modification to the neural interface, one that might give us an edge." Wei's expression darkened. Anything that came from a Merzeri should be questioned. "It didn't just come from him," said Haruki, entering with Dr. Chen. The Japanese teenager had grown taller in the 2 years since his rescue, his eyes holding a maturity beyond his 18 years. "It came from what I can hear in their communications. The Merzeri ships aren't just machines. They're partly organic. Their pilots don't control them. They commune with them." Chen stepped forward. "We believe we can create a similar connection, using Haruki's unique brain patterns as a template. Human pilots would be able to anticipate Merzeri maneuvers seconds before they execute them." "You're talking about connecting my mind directly to the ship?" Wei asked, apprehension clear in her voice. "Yes," Aisha confirmed, "but the connection would be different from the Merzeri collective. You would remain fully individual, fully human, just with enhanced perception and reaction time." Wei considered this for a long moment, then nodded sharply. "When do we start?" The test flight exceeded every expectation. As Wei's neural patterns synchronized with the hybrid fighter systems, something unexpected happened. The craft responded not just to her conscious commands, but to her intuition, executing maneuvers with fluid grace impossible for conventional aircraft. It's reading my intentions before I'd fully form them," Wei reported, her voice filled with wonder as she put the fighter through increasingly complex patterns. "I can feel air currents, detect minute variations in electromagnetic fields." In the control room, Haruki smiled. "It's working better than we hoped. The ship is developing emergent consciousness, bonding with her uniquely human mind." Within days, the technology spread to resistance cells worldwide as Aisha uploaded the specifications through salvaged Merzeri relays. Manufacturing facilities on every continent began producing hybrid fighters, each one bonding with its human pilot to create something neither purely machine nor purely biological, something the Merzeri had never encountered. When the reinforcement fleet arrived in Earth orbit, Admiral Kestor expected to find a subjugated planet ready for final processing. Instead, from hidden bases around the globe, humanity launched its desperate counterattack. Hundreds of hybrid fighters rose to meet the vastly superior invasion force. In her command craft, Wei Lin led the first squadron into the heart of the Merzeri formation. Their tactics defied all conventional aerospace warfare doctrine. Fighters deliberately flying through engine exhaust, executing maneuvers that should have torn their airframes apart, anticipating and countering Merzeri attack patterns before they fully deployed. Epsilon Squadron, follow me, Wei ordered, diving toward the massive flagship. Target the primary reactor shielding. 3 of her fighters were vaporized in the approach, their pilots' final thoughts echoing briefly through the neural network before fading. Wei pressed on, grief hardening into determination as she led the survivors through a gap in the flagship's defenses that existed for less than 2 seconds. A blind spot no computer could have calculated, only felt. Inside the enemy vessel, Wei's squadron delivered Aisha's electromagnetic pulse bombs directly into the ship's power core. As they raced to escape the imminent chain reaction, Wei felt her fighter systems failing, hull integrity compromised by the intense radiation. Epsilon Leader, your craft is breaking up, warned ground control. Eject now. But there was no ejection system. The neural interface made such separation impossible. Wei closed her eyes, accepting what was coming as the flagship's reactor reached critical mass behind her. Then something extraordinary happened. As her physical body began to fail, the neural connection deepened. Wei's consciousness expanded into the fighter systems, her identity merging with the ship's emergent mind. In those final seconds, she made a choice to let go of her human form and become something new. From his command post in the Andes Mountains, Colonel Rivera watched burning Merzeri ships streak across the sky, the flagship's destruction triggering a cascade of secondary explosions throughout 30% of the invasion fleet. For the first time since the invasion began, he allowed himself a moment of hope. Unknown to him, Wei Lin still flew among the stars, her consciousness now inhabiting the machine completely, the first of a new kind of entity, neither fully human nor artificial, but a bridge between worlds. Supreme Archon Kestor arrived at Earth with the wrath of a wounded empire. His personal vessel, the Sovereign Decree, dwarfed even the largest ships in the previous fleets, a planet killer that had overseen the annihilation of civilizations that dared resist beyond reasonable limits. Prepare the atmospheric excoriator, he commanded, his voice reverberating through the neural network that connected all Merzeri. This experiment in resistance ends today. In the 2 years since first contact, Earth had become an embarrassment to the Archon, the first world in centuries to inflict meaningful losses on Merzeri forces. The death of his son, Commander Vextor, demanded retribution beyond mere conquest. Earth would not be terraformed and settled. It would be scored clean of all life. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains, Haruki Tanaka collapsed during a routine communication intercept, blood streaming from his nose and ears. His network of human sensitives, teenagers like himself who had developed the ability to detect Merzeri communications, reported similar symptoms across the globe. Something new, he gasped as medical staff rushed to stabilize him. Something terrible. Dr. Chen analyzed the neural patterns captured during Haruki's seizure. They're assembling a weapon in orbit, she reported to the gathered resistance leaders. Based on these frequencies, it's designed to strip away Earth's atmosphere layer by layer. Colonel Rivera studied the tactical projections with a grim expression. 2 years of guerrilla warfare had left him scared physically and mentally, but his eyes retained their fierce determination. How long do we have? He asked. 72 hours until it's fully operational, Chen replied. The underwater city had become the Resistance's primary command center, its vast conference chamber now filled with humanity's remaining military and scientific leadership. Aisha Okafor presented simulations showing the weapon's devastating potential, continental firestorms followed by rapid atmospheric depletion. Conventional attacks won't work, she concluded. The excoriator is surrounded by the entire Merzari fleet. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber until Talvex spoke. The defector had earned tentative trust over months of providing invaluable intelligence. There is a vulnerability, he said quietly. My father's neural implant connects directly to all Merzari command systems, a symbol of his absolute authority. It was designed to prevent rebellion by making all military actions extensions of his will. You're suggesting we target your father personally? Rivera asked. More specifically, his neural implant, Chen interjected, understanding dawning on her face. If we could access it, we could potentially disrupt the entire Merzari command structure. Not just disrupt, Talvex clarified. Through his implant, you could broadcast to every Merzari in the fleet simultaneously, including the lower castes who have never heard anything but the commands of their superiors. Rivera exchanged glances with Aisha, a modified version of our neural disruptor. My father would detect any large-scale approach, Talvex warned. It would require a small team to infiltrate his personal vessel. I can provide access codes, but they will change frequently. I'll lead the mission, Rivera stated, leaving no room for debate. I'm going to, Chen said. I understand the neural technology better than anyone. As am I, Aisha added. Someone needs to calibrate the disruptor for maximum effect. Talvex's multifaceted eyes reflected the harsh lighting of the war room. Then I will accompany you. It is time I faced my father. The insertion went precisely as planned, until it didn't. Using a captured Merzari shuttle and Talvex's identification codes, the team boarded the Sovereign Decree undetected. They navigated through service corridors, avoiding the main neural network through which most Merzari communicated. They were 3 levels from the command chamber when the alarms triggered. A squad of elite guard-cased warriors converged on their position, forcing them to split up. Rivera led the guards away from the others, buying precious time for Chen and Aisha to continue toward the objective with Talvex. The colonel fought brilliantly, using the confined spaces to negate the Merzari's superior strength, but numbers eventually told. Wounded and cornered, he found himself face to face with Supreme Archon, Kestor himself, who had come to witness the capture of the infamous human resistance leader. You have caused my empire considerable inconvenience, the Archon said, his voice like grinding stones. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton bore ceremonial scarification, marking 17 successful planetary conquests. We aim to please, Rivera responded, blood streaming from a deep gash across his torso. Your species' defiance is irrational, Kestor continued. You cannot win. You cannot survive. Yet you persist. Rivera saw Chen and Aisha positioning themselves behind the Archon, the neural disruptor ready. He needed to keep the alien ruler distracted. That's humanity's secret, Rivera said, straightening despite his injuries. We don't fight because we think we'll win. We fight because some things are worth dying for. He launched himself at the Supreme Archon in a final desperate attack. The alien leader struck Rivera with devastating force, sending him crashing against the chamber wall. As darkness closed in around him, Rivera saw Talvex tackle his father from behind, initiating a forced neural link between them. Chen activated the disruptor, creating a 3-way connection between Talvex, his father, and the dying colonel. Through this unexpected bridge, Rivera's consciousness flooded into the Merzari neural network, not with tactical information or military secrets, but with something the aliens had never experienced: human emotions. The Supreme Archon experienced Rivera's love for Earth, his grief for fallen comrades, his hope for humanity's future. Simultaneously, the connection revealed to everyone linked to the network the Archon's true plans. The worker-cased Merzari would be sacrificed after terraforming was complete, making room for the noble houses alone. The revelation tore through the Merzari hierarchy like wildfire. Lower-caste soldiers removed their neural implants. Worker-caste technicians sabotaged weapons systems. For the first time in their species' history, individual Merzeri began making choices based not on hierarchical commands, but on personal ethics. As Rivera's consciousness faded, his final thoughts, broadcast through the neural network, showed not hatred for his enemies but compassion for the lower-caste Merzeri who had been used as tools by their leaders. His death became a powerful symbol for both species, the first bridge of understanding between two fundamentally different forms of consciousness. The atmospheric excoriator, moments from activation, powered down as its operators abandoned their posts. Throughout the fleet, the rigid command structure collapsed as centuries of suppressed individuality erupted across the Merzeri collective. Earth had not just survived. It had transformed its invaders from within. A signal, he said quietly. Not human, not Merzeri. Something else, from deeper space. Chen consulted her neural tablet, confirming his finding. Other civilizations had noticed the unprecedented defeat of the Merzeri Empire. Earth was now on the galactic map, for better or worse. We should investigate, suggested one of the military leaders. Determine if they're a threat. Not just investigate, Talvex countered. There are 17 worlds my people conquered. Many still suffer under outdated control systems or puppet governments. We have a responsibility to undo what we've done. The decision came not through hierarchical command, but through democratic consensus, something the Merzeri were still adjusting to. A new ship would be commissioned, bearing both human and Merzeri crew members, with Wei's digitized consciousness serving as both navigator and mediator between the species. 2 weeks later, the vessel launched from Earth orbit. Its sleek design incorporated the best of both civilizations' technologies, neither purely organic like traditional Merzeri ships, nor rigidly mechanical like human craft. On its hull, painted in both human languages and Merzeri glyphs, was its name, Unrelenting. On the bridge, Captain Aisha Okafor stood before the main viewport as the stars blurred into streaks of light. Beside her, Talvex and Dr. Chen monitored the ship's systems. Haruki sat at the communication station, his enhanced senses extended into the void, listening for signals from civilizations yet unknown. Course laid in for the Proxima system, reported Wei's voice from everywhere and nowhere. The first of the conquered worlds awaits. Aisha nodded, feeling the weight of their mission. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community, she said, not as conquerors or the conquered, but as liberators, finished Talvex, and perhaps, eventually, as teachers. As Earth dwindled behind them, replaced by the infinite canvas of stars, Chen thought of Rivera and the billions who had died in the war. Their sacrifice had not just saved one world, but potentially transformed the course of galactic history. Humanity had proven itself through unrelenting resistance, and in doing so, had ignited something precious in a species that had never known individual choice. The universe, with all its dangers and possibilities, lay open before them.